All right, this tutorial will help you learn about some brushes um, that you can use. You depending on what you want to do with some of your photos. It'll help you with assignment 8 specifically. Um, so we want to open up the file number 17, which is called brush, and it's actually a picture of a flower. I know it's called brush and it's a picture of a flower. Oh well. So we're gonna use brushes on the flower. So that's why it's called that. All right. There are lots and lots and lots of brushes um, that you can use when you start to get into this and really create some really cool artistic effects. So highly encourage you to kind of become curious a little bit with what you have. Um, there are different kinds of brush tips and stuff like that. Um, if you come over here, um, obviously the brush tool itself, um, and you know how to pick colors, so you can pick them here: foreground colors, background colors, etc. I'm going to pick something kind of bright here, orange, that is not going to go very well with the background, but you can create, and you can see I've already got some kind of an effect on it. It's called vivid color. Let me put mine back on normal. And so now when I color, you can definitely see the difference in what I have there. We'll visit that in a minute. Again, you have the size of your brush. You make it 156 pixels, you're going to get a pretty good brush size there. The hardness, like that was at 100%. If I drop that hardness down to 6%, but still at 156 pixels, you can see there's a little bit difference on the edge around it. Um, that's kind of a faded looking edge. This is pretty rigid, pretty hardness of the brush that you have. Remember, when you do stuff like this, if you're like making a mess out of everything, it's okay. You do what you need to do to learn. Um, Over here in the history panel, you can always revert back to just an open command, and then all the any brush strokes that you might have had will go away. Okay. Um, I'm going to put my brush stroke back to a little bit more manageable size here. Um, and I'm going to put my hardness kind of back in that area. Um, you have the ability also to use what's called the opacity percentage. Like, okay, so here's a size 39. Can't remember what my hardness was. That's what the opacity looks like at 98%. I slide that down to 14%. You can barely see what I'm actually doing there. Right. And so you have that ability to change that opacity. I'm going to put that back up at 100%. And then the flow, like 100% opacity, 100% flow, looks like this. Oh, if I change the flow to something like this, looks a little bit different. Maybe you could call it the paint doesn't flow out maybe as much. There you go. Looks a little bit different like that. So you have the ability to use these buttons up here that you see. Um, this mode button that you see here, that I had changed back to normal. Like if you put it on like color burn, and you swipe over the top, it looks like, gives you some really interesting artistic types of effects. Rub over it a little bit more, gets a little bit more intense, go a little bit more quickly. That's called color burn. I was on the one when we started called lighter color. Not sure I'm going to get anything out of that one. I might have to change my flow. I bet if I change the flow and try that, yeah, that might give you something different. Vivid light I mean, look at when you're on here, it looks one way, you know. And the thing is, when you use these brushes, like if you wanted to um, paint just this one, you have to be ever so careful that you don't go outside, and I'll talk to you about how you can eliminate that from happening, but it's okay just to kind of see what actually happens here. You have the hue saturation, which we've talked about, a pin light. Um, some of them I can't really tell if anything actually happens or not. Okay. Over here in the toolbox, you also have a pencil tool that you could use and stuff like that. That's the clone stamp. This one right here. This is called the blur tool. Does exactly what it says it's going to do. If you hold the cursor up over the top, it blurs an area in an image, and you can see how it actually works. So if I scrub it across this area right here, I blur that edge between the yellow and the background. And again, you can change the hardness, the flow, the strength of it. Um, this one has a strength button up here, but you change the blur, blur the area. That's kind of a neat one to use when you're trying to create some artistic effects. Sharpen does exactly what it says it's going to do, make it sharpen, make it the picture sharper. Smudge is kind of a fun little tool. If you take and smudge between these two colors, it kind of mixes them, pulls the yellow into the background, pulls the background into the yellow. And so you can create some interesting looking effects with that. But again, you have to always stay within the boundaries of, you don't get to stay within the boundaries. You either have to be pretty steady Eddie there, or it's just going to go all over the place. Okay. I'm going to put that back on my blur tool. This one is a dodge tool. The screen tip says that it lightens an area in an image. So yeah, that pedal, if I scrub back and forth across it, is getting lighter. How about up here? You can kind of see it lighten up some of those tips. How about over here on the bud? Yeah, I definitely can see it there. But again, it goes outside the image. Okay. Um, that's the lighten. The burn tool darkens the image. And again, even if I go outside, it's going to do that. And that's part of what we're going to learn is how to get it so that it doesn't do all of the areas. It stays just within the area you want. And then the other one there is called the sponge tool. Um, the other thing that you have at your disposal is if you just go back to the regular brush tool, I'm going to put this back on normal. Okay. We talked about the opacity and stuff like that. Over here under the history panel, now you got the brush tool selected. There are ways that you can get different kind of what they call brush settings, and they're just like built in. Like if you want some paint splatters, this paint splatter 283, this is what it looks like, and you can see the effect that that actually creates. This is kind of like a different one that you see here, streaky kind of like stuff. And you can change the size of those, and you can change the different roundness of the edges and stuff like that. 123 is kind of a normal one. You can also like click on any of these, like a noise that you can add to it, or a scattering, and get different kind of settings as well. The smoothing is the typical category where most people are, and then there's the brushes up at the top, and those have just like the hard edge, the soft edge, the general brushes. You can open up the dry media and get this Kyle bonus chunky charcoal. They got some really interesting names, and or you can open up any of these other brush strokes that you see here that you can actually create. Um, and then of course move through all these different things. So brush settings, brushes, this is brushes. Brush settings, this is brushes, or you click the tabs, or you close it up, or if you come up here, you can get to some of those this way. If you click on this little folder, that opens this up over on the side. So when you look around at all those different things there, there's lots of stuff. And remember, when you do brushes and stuff like that, you do not create any layers or anything like that. Let's see if I can pick a different color. Yeah, you can pick different colors. Okay, and you can change opacities and all that kind of stuff. So let's go back, and we're going to just take all these brush strokes off, because what we really want to make sure we can do is, we can draw all over this and create a mess. But what if we want to change, like just do like a dodge or something, or a blur or opacity or paint on top of just the yellow flower, and you don't want to get the background? Because right now, if you try to go over the top of that yellow flower and you get a little too, yeah, see, you can easily get into the background. So let's talk about how to do that. So I'm going to go back to history, Now look, see, all that stuff is there. Yeah, we're just going to go back to open, and that'll take care of getting all those brush strokes off. Okay. So you want to be able to do just something to the flower itself, and you could do something just to one petal. We're just going to, for the sake of practice, so you understand what to do in the assignment, we're just going to get the whole flower. So 1, 2, 3, 4 tools down. Probably a good tool to use is the object selection tool. Now remember, with the object selection tool, all you have to do is kind of get close to what you want. Okay, I know I lost a little bit of the flower at the top. That's okay. Just kind of pick what you want, and then it will think for you. That tool will think like, okay, well, you drew a box. I wonder what you really want. And so it's going to think itself through this, and it should come up with a selection there for us. Not too bad. Even though I didn't include the tips of the yellow petals, it included it for me because it thought, oh, you picked more yellow. Maybe you want all that. But you can see over here, it also picked part of this bud. And I don't want that to be part of mine. Um, and it didn't do too bad around here. I might want to clean that up. So remember, you're expected to clean your picture up before you make any changes to it. So now that you have something selected, you're going to do the select and mask, and it should take you into this area where it turns it red. If it does not, there's a previous assignment where you learn to do this, or you're going to have to ask me how to do that. And so once we're over here, we got to come down to the third tool in the toolbox. Okay. And remember what the plus does. Okay. The plus takes the red away. Okay. I'm going to undo that. The minus will add red. So I want to color this whole bud in red. Now I can go back and get a different brush stripe size to make this a little bit more efficient. And the other thing that would be good to do right now is definitely zoom. Okay. You're going to want to zoom in so you can really see what it is that you're doing. Like down here, I need to get rid of that little area right there. I need to turn that little area red. So definitely I'm going to want to zoom in on that area because it didn't select it for me. Now come back to that third brush up here and minus. And my brush might actually be a little bit too big for that area now because I just want the tiniest of adding of red right in here. And I might actually have to get a smaller brush to actually get in there the way that I want to get in there and get rid of that. Now you'll have to do the same to your picture, but we're practicing, so I'm not going to take any more time, and neither do you, but you just need to make sure that you need to come in here and you need to clean up your selection before you go on to the next step. Okay? So let's say we did clean it up perfectly. So then we export this thing out by clicking OK. And now you can see like that bud, I didn't quite get it, did I? Yep. So that's why you want to zoom in down on your object. But now if I come back to a brush stroke and I don't want green, I want to pick kind of a pink color, and you can pick whatever color you want. And now when I brush over, see, and I'm back to all these wonky little brush strokes that I see here, that because that's what the last thing that my brush was actually on. So I'm going to get myself off of that. I'm going to go back to that smoothing area, and I am going to pick something that isn't going to give me, oh, and now I'm smudging. So that's one of the things you have to do is you got to get yourself off of these brushes. Here's general brushes. I just want to come back to something normal. Let's see if that'll do it. Okay. And so what I want to do is I want to come back, and I've changed the exposure and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to be in the midtones. I want my exposure to be a little bit higher. And I'm going to come back. And now if I go outside, it won't do anything. See that? I push that up there, and it's not going to hit my background at all. Anything I do now, because I selected it, is going to stay within my selection. And I can go anywhere I want, and I can start to then create some really cool effects because now I've made my selection. So that's what you want to be able to do. You want to be able to make that selection, perfect it. so that you can make these artistic changes to your object. So that should give you enough information so that you can now go read about assignment number 8 and give it a try. Good luck.